Country Chevrolet is countrychev.com, online, worldwide. Brings you Carl's podcast, countrychev.com. Proud to be the studio sponsors of Carl's podcast.
Good afternoon, morning, good evening to you. This is Carl's Corner, live from the countrychev.com studios, broadcasting via the Tom Bernard Podcast Network, saying hello to everybody out there and everybody here. We've got a full show. It was one of my favorites. Looking forward to doing this program for a long time. In the studio, we've got Wally. Wally's in there. And the Dutchman.
Hello.
Yeah, where's Wally?
He's over there. He's getting some stuff ready for the show, but he'll be back on.
Yeah, so we're all here, Dutchman, Carl, Wally, and we're going to be talking to Tom Mischke today on today's program for the full hour, maybe a little bit more. I'm going to play some old calls and going to find out first what he's all about and what he's doing. So let's do that and make sure you know all about. The program is brought to you by our friends at countrychev.com. Get there online all the time. It's countrychev.com studios, proud sponsors of Carl's Corner.
Hello.
Good morning, Mischke. This is Carl.
Top of the morning to you, Carl.
How are things today, the 24th of March?
Pretty much the same as every other day. Remember what Walter Cronkite said at the end of many of his newscasts? This was a day like any other day, filled with those events that alter and illuminate our lives.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful stuff, even today, thinking about your own life, huh?
Yeah, I mean, every ordinary day is an extraordinary day, and I guess that's what Walt was saying.
Yeah. Well, let me set this up a little bit, Mischke, for the people that are tuning into the podcast, Carl's Corner, live from the Country Chevrolet studio. We're talking to an old radio guy and writer and creative genius named Tom Mischke, and we're going to let him tell us a little bit about himself for 2 minutes because we want to know what his new thing is about. And after we learn about what his new deal is, then we'll talk and open the lines up for questions from people. Tom, I got to tell you, there's a studio full of people here. The Dutchman's here in the room, and Wally's over there too. And we're all people. Adam Carter was going to try to get in here for this because it's we want to talk a little bit about how all of us got interested in this all because of you. And so second half of the show, I'll let these guys talk, and they'll maybe play some audio for you if that's okay, and maybe bring you back a little bit to the old days when they used to mess around with you.
Sure.
But today I'm messing around with you, so you're going to be starting a new podcast or a new broadcasting career. Tell me about it.
Well, the way it came about was I hung it up at WCCO last August 1st, deciding that I really didn't feel the show was meeting my standards, and I assumed that must mean that I've sort of hit the bottom of the tank creatively, and maybe it was time to try something new that would recharge the batteries, make me feel like I was young again. When I had all that energy, I'd get up in the morning in my 20s and 30s and say, what a great deal. I have a radio show today. Give me 16 hours, 20 hours. There isn't enough time in the day to do all I want to do on the radio. Let's roll. Well, that wasn't there anymore in the last couple of years, and I thought maybe if I find a new project, that will all come back, because that's how you want to live. That's how you want to work, as though they gotta drag you away from it. You love it so much. So I was hoping to find something like that, and the first few months, nothing. I mean, nothing. I didn't have an idea all of August, all of September, all of October, all of November, and I thought, well, maybe I'm just supposed to not work again. And then in December, Jason Davis of On the Road fame at KSTP announced he was going to retire in May. And lo and behold, that happened to be the same month my no-compete ended with CBS Radio. And I said, well, that must be preordained. I must be destined to be the next Jason Davis. So I contacted the very folks who fired me over there and thought, let's just find out if they're even open to me arriving for any kind of talk moving in this direction. Well, not only were they open to it, they welcomed me, and I found myself in January in talks with them to take over Jason Davis's On the Road television program. That sounded kind of cool, and I thought, this is great. It's sort of like what I did before, but it's TV. It's going to be wildly different in some ways, and that'll energize me. Then came news that my wife was going to have to spend the next year, beginning this summer, in Kansas City due to an internship she was getting to get her doctorate in psychology. Very competitive field, tough to find universities to give you an internship, and in her case, she was going to have to go all the way down to Lawrence, Kansas, live there for a year. And I thought, wait a minute, how is this going to work? I work long days every day at KSTP. I arrive Friday night exhausted, and I get up Saturday morning and drive 8 hours, see her Saturday night, get up Sunday, drive 8 hours to go home. All of a sudden, everything changed, and I had to think creatively, and I decided that rather than not see my wife for a year, I'd just come up with my own road show. Now, all this while, ever since I had left WCCO, Tom Bernard had been bugging me to do something on his network. And I was pretty sure I would never do that. I just would tell him, Tom, that's what I just left. Why would I get into it again? The whole idea is I'm done with that. But when this thing happened with my wife, I said, maybe I should talk to Tom again, because somehow I got to come up with a way to make a living here and in Kansas and in between. I needed to find a way to make a living on the road. And thus was born the idea for the Mischke Road Show, which will debut May 12th and will indeed involve me not going into any radio studio anywhere. The show will just sort of come from wherever I am. I mean, even if I'm in the Twin Cities, I might stop into the studio now and again, but it's more likely that I'll be off somewhere in the back room of some retail operation talking to some odd janitor. I don't know where I'll be. I could be in a mechanic's shop. I could be. Actually, I'm already planning for my first show to hang out in a coffin store. Guy makes coffins in my neighborhood, and the show will come from there. So that's how the whole thing came about, and it's going to be on Tom Bernard's podcasting network, which is a mysterious world.
It's kind of puzzling, Tom, really. Let me go back. We're talking with Tom Mischke about the next deal for him, the Mischke Road Show, which is kicking off May the 12th. You declined to be and take the role of Jason Davis. You won't be doing On the Road again for KSTP?
No, two things happened. One was that idea of having to... I mean, I don't know if you're married, Carl, but if you like your wife at all, not seeing her for a year is kind of a downer.
Yeah, no, so you didn't, just because of that travel, you said, I can't do that show. I thought maybe they were going to let you videotape it and put it on television.
Show, Carl, is, just to let you know what I'd be diving into, this is bigger than an 8-hour day. This would be a real commitment. I'd sometimes be working weekends, and the last thing I'd feel like doing is driving down to Kansas on a job that already has me going all over the place. So we just wouldn't see each other except for holidays. And there's one other thing that was a weird little caveat. When I was at KSTP, I worked for Ginny. Ginny was a Hubbard who gave her employees an extraordinary amount of rope. One of the reasons I was able to create what I created in radio was because I had Ginny for a boss. She just really allowed the talent to do their thing. I heard behind the scenes, through the grapevine, whispers here and there that I best get used to that being no longer the case, because when I got to television, I'd be working for Rob Hubbard, and they said all Hubbards are not the same, and television is not going to offer you anywhere near the freedom radio did. Well, that got me a little nervous, because pretty much what I've lived on for the last couple of decades is freedom, literally the ability to do whatever I wanted to, whenever I wanted it, however I wanted to do it. So there was a weird fear that I'd get to TV and go, oh my God. I had a little taste of that one time. I worked for Channel 23 back in the 90s when the Saints would have St. Paul Saints would have their games telecast, and they had me doing color commentary. Well, the idea was it's the Saints. You're supposed to be irreverent. This isn't a straight game, play-by-play in color. This is, something you have fun with. Well, I got called in by Channel 23 one time, 3 days into the gig, and they said, just a couple of things, Tom. Could you walk it back a little bit on the edgy humor? Do you own any polo shirts? And let's not ever say the word hell. And I realized, I'm in television now. This is very different. So maybe I dodged a bullet, I don't know, but because of this Kansas thing with my wife, I had to create something. The downside is it's a hell of a lot of work creating something from scratch, and it's a long learning curve, and it's a lot of starting from the ground up as opposed to an established thing like on the road. The upside is, is there any more freedom than this in a job? I defy someone to show me more.
Yeah. Tom, you take on a lot of the production then of everything, so you'll be responsible.
I do everything, which has never been the case. I guess it was a little bit at City Pages. In some ways, this does remind me of the year in between KSTP and CCO, where I actually had to build a studio in a closet in my house, and that was a steep learning curve, learning how to do. I did a podcast for a year there.
Yeah. Is that you were there for a whole year then, in between that?
Could I just ask what's going on in the background?
What do you mean?
Sounds like you're having a jazzercise class or something.
Oh, that's those guys playing around. That's what these guys are playing around. They must have.
I see. That's the background music to my little spiel there. I get it. That works. Good call.
Yeah, I'm pretty good about it. I don't know. Well, it might be something else. They'll talk about it next hour. We're talking with Tom Mischke about being on the road show and Tom Bernard's network. Now, the nice thing about this, the network that Tom Bernard provides for you, you can say just about anything. Don't have to worry about saying hell, Tom. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I was never, even in my City Pages days during that year when I had that podcast, I was never one to exploit that too much. By golly, Don Shelby sure has fun with it, but...
Oh, boy, yeah, he's the total polar opposite of what you think the guy would be, which is fun.
Yeah, he's got a wacky side, although the wacky side that I would like to explore with Don has less to do with the coarse language and more to do with his naked conga drumming in the basement. There's more to learn about with that guy, more to reveal. I don't think we've explored all we can, and I look forward to having him on my show when I can get him in the hot seat and find out what is the deal with that naked conga playing in the basement, and is that something that happens perhaps more in the suburbs than we think? I don't know if you know the story.
Yeah, well, they alluded to it. The Chucker alluded to it the other day on Tom's show about Don playing the Skins. So he must be a drummer.
With his necktie tied around his forehead, but otherwise without clothes, and his wife catching him that way. One of those stories that Dave Moore would have had a ball with. Would have been fun to actually see that on the bedtime news, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, it wouldn't have.
Well, we've done a research on you over the years and loved you from all the places that you played. We didn't to listen too much during the Don Vogel beginning days with you, but so all through your career,